stress is an interesting part of our lives. The first time I gave this lecture, I'm a single mother of 5, and the first time I gave this lecture, this is what I left at home. Right before I went to a conference to speak about this, one of the contractors who I invited to help me renew the roof of the house, I don't know if you can see it because of the light, but they said, oh, our time, we slipped with the time frame, but we can start it right now. I said, I'm leaving this morning. You cannot do it. I have only the kids in the house. They said, this is the only time we can change your roof. So I kept praying to God, and I kept asking my kids, please send me notes, what's going on, keep in touch with me, pick up the phone when I'm calling you. And I kept saying to the contractor, please take care of my kids. And at the end of the day, this is the picture I got. No roof, nothing. And I'm giving a lecture about stress. Now, right before I came here, the same thing happened, except now the bottom of the house is removed, the same way. And I thought to myself, do I have the right to talk about stress and peace in the midst of stress? How can we avoid stress when life is full of it? It is unexpected. It is not something I planned for. The stressors that we live for, most of the time it's not something we ask for or we stood in line for like we do for lunch. It is something unexpected most of the time. It is something that is taking away our energy, often is challenging us. Do I have control over it? What is going on? The definition of stress by one of the most famous stress specialists, Hans Scheer, who was, by the way, Hungarian, he said it's a non-specific response of the body to any demand to change. The key here is it is a response to a demand to change. Change. How do we handle change? That is one major question of stress. The other definition is stress is an energetic exchange, one that has the potential to lead either to growth or breakdown. As a clinical counselor, people usually don't come to see me because they say stress is bringing me the great potentials to change. They are coming to see me and they are saying, Emoke, I am about to break down. And many times I sit in front of them and I'm thinking to myself, I'm only one step ahead of you because I survived yesterday, and I hope that I will not break down today. We live in a fast-paced world full of expectations and demands and non-stop change. I mean, I turned on my phone this morning and there is a new application on it. While I was sleeping, it just loaded something on it that is now my new internet. I have no clue how to handle it, so I haven't been on the internet since this morning. This is how change and how stress is constantly present in our lives. Now, the more we deal with other people, the higher the rate of the demand on us. Because it's now not only our lives, but all the lives of the people that are entrusted on us. And every single change that they are stressed by will also have a potential to stress us. The beauty of this whole question of stress is that it can bring growth. Crisis, stress, demands are always a possibility for growth. Every single time you find yourself in the midst of the deepest questions and struggles of your life, think about it this way. It has the potential for me to redefine myself, to redefine my relationships, to redefine my life. Stress can be an opportunity for redefinition of my life, of my identity, of my relationships. Beautiful. There are two kinds of stresses. One is eustress. Those are that what we call eustress is usually it is caused by positive circumstances. Maybe a child is born. It is beautiful, but it is a new stressor. We love it. We enjoy it, but our body still experiences the same reactions, except we interpret them and we feel them the different way than when distress happens, when something negative happens in our life. Why is it so difficult to manage stress? Well, two words I would like to bring to your attention today. One is perception, and the other is control. When I sit across couples who are going through a great amount of stress about their relationship, about their families, or I sit across with some executives who are leading companies, or major departments of companies, what I see most of the time is either a question of perception or the question of control. The perception of an individual experiencing stress ultimately determines the response. I really like a Stoic philosopher. I don't agree with everything he says, but he's very challenging to me. His name is Epictetus, and he lived 46 before Christ. He was born to be a slave, and he was handicapped on one of his legs. And he says, it is not the things, the events that destroy people, but the way they perceive those events. And the reason I like him saying it, because many other people have said that after him, but see, this is a slave who says slavery and the fact that I'm a slave cannot destroy me. But the way I think about it can. The way I perceive it has the potential to destroy me. The fact that I am handicapped on one leg as a slave, making me worthless of the worthless, it cannot destroy me. But the way I perceive it, the way I look at it, can. Think about it. How do we perceive our stressing situations, our stressful relationships in life? Perception can determine the response. And also, the sense of having little or no control is always distressful. That is what stress is all about. When I feel out of control, it increases my stress level. If I say I can manage it, although stress is there, but somehow it has the potential of calming down because I see some way of resolving the problem. But how many times a day have you found yourself being out of control? I know in my life, I feel like my whole life is out of control. I'm trying to turn on this laptop. Makes me wonder, am I in control? I'm glad somebody's helping with this. The question of perception and the question of control are two major aspects of how we deal, how can we manage stress in our lives. See, we live in a society when 100% satisfaction is guaranteed. 100% satisfaction, am I in? You can please let me know if you cannot see. More on this side?
No, it's fine, but when the other was there, we couldn't see.
This is going to stress. Thank you. So, in a world when you are told that 100% satisfaction is guaranteed, it's not just about you getting everything you want with satisfaction. It also puts the demand on you that you have to perform 100% in return. I haven't yet met a boss who did not demand 100% from the people who worked for him. How is a life affected with satisfaction? With the demands. See, we live in a world of humanism, and humanism is a great stressor. I would like to first talk to you about our perception, because humanism is highly affecting our perception on stress and demands. Control over having our needs met have become the basis of our value system. So when I have a thing that is challenging me, for example, I would like to come to this forum peacefully, calmly. I cleaned the house beforehand, I cooked everything for the kids, and I said, I am a good mother, I am leaving them in peace, in safety, I will well providing them for the whole entire week, and I'm coming to the forum. And then the doorbell rings, and the guy stands in front of me and says, can we start working on your house now? And everything is gone. In a split of a second. And my question is, do I feel like my needs are met? My needs are not met, because my need was being in peace when I leave, in confidence that everything is in control. But I see it in relationships, that people have expectations of each other. And when their expectations are not met, they become more and more stressed. Why aren't you acting the way I want you to act? Why aren't you doing the things I ask you to do? I am expecting you to do. Why are you answering the way that is not meeting my needs? And we don't even realize it, that by the influence of humanism, we are putting more and more demand on ourselves and on others. What is humanism? Just let me show you a couple thoughts of humanism from a psychological perspective. First of all, humanism says man is alone. Wouldn't that be a great stressor? Isn't that painful to think about this? You're alone in this, man. Like it or not, you are stuck in it, all alone. And actually, Satan wants us to believe this. I have a man sitting in front of me the other day, and he looks at me with panic disorder because he's totally depleted his body, performing 100% on all the work that he's doing. He is a leader of his company. He is doing magnificently. He is really outstanding in his work, in his family life, among his friends, everything. And I look at him and I said, why are you putting so much effort in this, all of this? He looked at me and he said, it's either me or nobody else. That's humanism for you. It's either me or nobody else. I looked at him and I was thinking to myself, how blessed I am to know that it all doesn't depend on me, because there is somebody else. Humanism focuses on the fulfillment of human needs and desires. Needs and desires. We are constantly bombarded, attacked by the needs that we don't even think we have a need for. You just get it from Facebook, from all sorts of commercials, from the person sitting next to you at work, from the person talking to you in church. All you hear is over and over and again, you have a need that you haven't even realized. I will need to change my car because it is time to change my car. And the company that I asked to help me out with sent me a list of possibilities that I can get with the car. And they said to me, with this much, if you pay this much more for this car, you can have seat heating for your seat. Well, I knew that it exists, but I never sat in a car that had heating under my rear end. So I was looking at the paper and I was thinking, why would I need it when I'm sitting in my car in a coat anyhow? And even like this, I have a car heating. Well, I know it's comfortable, and I wrote them, well, thank you, but no. The answer is, oh, you could really use it on cold days. And I was thinking, the last time we built a snowman with the kids was about 10 years ago. And they keep telling me, you need it. Believe me, you need it. And what I see when people find themselves, their lives, that you don't have what you needed, they get stressed, they get worried, they feel out of control. We are told that if all of our needs are not met, then we're not worthy of love. I'm divorced. So many times I hear people, but don't you need a husband? Well, it would be a blessing, but no, I don't need one. I don't want to marry out of need. And how many singles do I see day after day going through the question, can I live without somebody? I need somebody. I always tell them, if you need somebody, please do not marry. Not because I don't believe in marriage, but because I don't believe in marrying out of need, not out of neediness. We need, what do you need? What is the need that is pressing you to be at a higher position, to be more successful, to be more appreciated? What is the need that is pushing you into the hands of your stressors? Humanism says you got to meet all your needs and desires. And because of it, man is on a treadmill with an unreachable goal. Because in the minute you reach your goal, you need to increase it. Because none of those goals will fulfill the needs of your heart. It's like addiction. Life is focused on the fulfillment of the needs, but how does he or she know what his or her real needs are? How do we know what our real needs are? What will determine it? Ask some of the non-Christians around you. How do you know what your needs are? Who will determine it? Who is the one proclaiming the truth, in quote, that this is what you need? My experience is that it is society and public opinion. It is a society and public opinion who is trying to tell us what we need. And fighting against it is a real battle. Fighting against it is going, we say in Hungarian, going against the wind instead of with the back wind. That is humanism. And what is the triumph of this idealized worldview? What I see, people with failure in the fulfillment of their desires, totally incomprehension. What is going on? I have done everything to feel safe, and I don't. What's wrong? I have done everything to be loved, to feel loved. Why am I not feeling loved? What's wrong? I don't get it. I have done everything to have worth, to have value, to belong. When people are trying to meet their deep longings with worldly needs, the result of failure and a total confusion, I don't get it. What have I done wrong? And disappointment. The triumph of humanism, of this idealized worldview of 100% guaranteed, is disappointment in self. I am a failure. I'm a loser. I cannot do it. I couldn't do it. I couldn't achieve. I have a businessman who comes to see me regularly. He's not on the top, but I think he's quite successful. He's married and he has a loving wife. He has 2 children. And he had his 2 children after a lot of struggles, many struggles, because for a while they could not have children. He sits in front of me and he tells me, Emoke, I'm a failure. He's about 35. I say, why are you a failure? I look at him, and from what I told you, his life seemed to be round, right? He has everything. He said, I couldn't achieve anything I wanted to when I was 20. And I look at him and I say, well, what else did you want to achieve? And he cannot even define it. He cannot define it. He cannot name it. All he can say, I'm a failure, and he's in depression. He's in medication. Because his life is a failure. And the stressor on him is the demands of the world. We also, with this, come to be a disappointment, in this disappointment with people. What I see, if I am disappointed in me, then I also will be disappointed with you. Actually, I read a long time ago a book that I need to look for. I don't remember the title or the author. If anybody knows it, please let me know, because I would like to reread the book. It was research done on death row, people with people on death row, who are, for those of you who don't know the word death row, it is people who have committed murder, and they were sentenced to life in prison or death or execution. And this, the writer talks about 3 stages that all these people go through. It's a very interesting thing. He's not a Christian, he's not a psychologist, he's just a journalist writing this book. And he said, first thing that he noticed, that the people who were sentenced to death, the first stage in their imprisonment was, I didn't do it, I didn't do it, I didn't do it, I'm innocent, I'm innocent, I'm innocent. And he says somewhere in the process of, in this stage, at the end of the stage, there is a new stage coming in. The second stage just says, I'm guilty. Oh God, I'm guilty. I should have not done it. I have sinned. And then he says there is a third stage, a very interesting third stage, when people will come and say, I'm innocent, they are at fault. And one of the things that the author says, how interesting that people cannot handle the pain of guilt. We cannot handle the pain of guilt. See, when we are disappointed in self, after a while we cannot handle the pain of guilt. And we want to put the guilt on somebody else. So we start blaming and being disappointed in people. But you know, that's not enough. So what we do, we have a tendency to put the blame on God and be disappointed with God because he didn't serve my needs. It is so painful to see Christians who are disappointed in God. Often the root of it is God not meeting all their needs as they wanted it. And then the triumph of this idealized worldview is rebellion and the disillusionment with self, people, and God. And then abandonment with God, abandoning God, and with that, a loss of identity. So expectations and control, perception and control. So he said that his natural reaction is stress out and then stop and think, oh, I need time with God. So the question is, can we stop before we are stressed out, right? So let me show some of my ideas. This is not a tall idea, but I would like to show you a couple more things. I really like to emphasize, number one, is that we need to respect our bodies. I really like John Lennox talking about this morning, saying that there is a material world. There is matter in our lives. Yes, there is matter, and this body is one of them. Some of us have a predisposition of being more anxious. And when people ask me, Emoke, will I ever be totally healed in this world from anxiety disorders or anxiety? I usually tell them, they think I'm cynical, but I'm not. But I tell them, no. You will live with some form of anxiety for the rest of your life. The question is, do you learn to manage it? The question is not, are you living without it or with it? But can you handle it? Can you manage it? Is it controlling you, or are you controlling it? And that's my answer also for depression, which is also often a reaction to stress, because you're so stressed out that your body is just totally emptied out of all the energy. So there is some form of predisposition, but I think we are all predisposed to something that we don't like. I'm looking forward to the day when I meet everybody perfect in heaven. Until then, we need to learn how to handle it, how to take care of ourselves, and how to go on without hurting ourselves and others because of our predisposition. So I like to say, please be merciful with yourself. There is a great need for cardiovascular exercises. I know it sounds like, okay, I can get it on anywhere on Facebook and on any internet channel. Anywhere you go, you will read it. Still, people don't do it. If you have a physical exercise for 20 minutes a day, as little as 20, it would be better to have it 30. But if you have 20 minutes a day, there is a great chance that you can even recover without medication. And if you're taking medication for anxiety or depression, it is helping the medication to work. Anybody who comes to me with mood disorders, I ask them, would you please promise me to run, swim, bike, do anything? I don't care if you want to jump rope, that's fine. Anything that moves your whole entire body and that keeps your heart rate up for about 20 to 30 minutes every other day, that's already great. You're doing a great thing for your body. Respecting our body is sleep. It's like plugging your phone in. You know, you need to recharge. When you're sleeping, it is actually recharging your brain. I think one of the things that we disrespect ourselves with is the number of hours that we sleep. How many hours a night do you sleep? We would need about 6, 7.5 hours. Most of the people I meet do not sleep 6 hours only on weekends. Most of them sleep 4 to 5 hours a day. Another one is healthy food. And I put there wondering. My father was a psychiatrist and a neurologist. And I remember when I called him and I said, Dad, I cannot take it anymore. And he said, honey, half an hour aimless wandering a day. And I was thinking, why did I call my dad? Why did I call him? He doesn't know me. And actually, it was one of our biggest arguments between him and me, because I kept telling him, Dad, don't you know my life? Don't you realize what I'm going through? Don't you know all the demands on me? Don't you know all the things I have to do? And he very calmly just responded, you still need aimless wandering half an hour a day. And I was thinking, every single word in that sentence is strange and foreign to me. First of all, aimless. I am everything but aimless. Wandering, I don't even know who came up with that word. That's crazy. I mean, everywhere I go, I have a plan in my head. I map things. Aimless, wandering, half an hour. I don't have half an hour. That's my problem. I don't even have 10 minutes. I'm glad if I get to the bathroom in time. And every day, I mean, that's regularity I have never had in my life. Now, but what does a good counselor do? Well, she hears an idea and tries it on her clients. So I took my clients and I said, I heard, how about we help your stress by half an hour aimless wandering a day? And they looked at me the way I looked at my father, but I kept a blank face like this is really professional. And guess what? The ones who kept it were getting gradually better. I have just recently met somebody who told me that ever since they heard that from me years ago, they're still doing it, and that's one of the best parts of their life. They're looking forward to that half an hour of their day. Do we have time for aimless wandering? Half an hour a day? That would be respecting our bodies before we break down. And relationships. We were created for connection and relationship because God is a God of relationship. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. One. They are one. And God created us to be in relationships. It is before the fall that God says himself, it is not good for man to be alone. Do you have healthy relationships? American Association of Christian Counselors with Larry Crabb, they did a research and a study, and they found that they said many years ago that about 80 to 85% of clients would need to see a counselor if they would have healthy relationships where they can talk about the problems. 80 to 85% of my clients, I would go broke. I would need to change jobs. What I see over and over again, every single day, people come and say, but I don't have anybody to talk to. Do you have anybody to talk to? Because holding it all in is an extra stressor. And I like to bring in creativity, because a creative God created us to be like him, that is creative. You know, when we do things that are not musts, that are not obligations and requirements, when we let our heart just be expressed in music, in any kind of woodwork or painting or gardening or cooking, whatever you like, or writing, that's another part of our brain and our heart that needs to come up. And while you are creating, all the problems somehow calm down in your heart. You need to have time for creating if you want to respect your bodies in the management of stress. Cognitive therapy says that Albert Ellis, the founder of cognitive therapy, said, people are destroyed by 3 musts. He said it is very typical that people who are very stressed, very anxious, very frustrated, they typically think alike. And one of the things that he found, that they think and talk with an irrational thought of must. He says there are 3 kinds of musts that they talk. One of them is, I must do well and win the approval of others and else, and of others, or else I am no good. I must do well. I must. I often tell my clients when I hear must, I pull a mark on my paper, on my notes, and sometimes I will tell them in the last half an hour, you said 16 times, and I must do this and I must do that. Think about it. It's constantly beating yourself up. It's constantly ringing a bell that is saying, time is up, time is up, time is up, hurry. The second one of the musts is, other people must do the right thing. or else they are no good. So first is I must do well, and the second one is others must do well. Other people must treat me well. Other people must know. These musts are killing our relationships, because it is not just me that I'm putting demand on, but it is also the other person that I'm putting demand on. And the third one is life must be easy, without discomfort and inconvenience. Isn't that humanism? Life must be easy. No discomfort, no inconvenience. The number one medication sold today is painkillers. And I think the number one goal of people is painkillers of the soul. See, when we are wounded, in our woundedness, we take on false lessons. That is our interpretation of why we are wounded. Maybe we learn that I'm no good, I'm not worthy of love, that I will never belong to anybody, that I will not be safe, that I am not exceptional, I have no uniqueness, I am just average. And with all this pain, I call them lies of our wounds. We start killing this pain. Not the woundedness it is that hurts us, but it is the lesson that we learned from our wounds. But see, as with every single painkiller, painkillers lose their effectiveness. So you need to increase the dose. And you need to do even better than you've done before. Otherwise, you will be no good. The lie will become true in your life. So you must do better. But then whatever you reached, there will be another level. So your painkiller will become your addiction, and your addiction will become your idol. And before you realize it, before I realize it, before we realize it, we have lost relationship with God. And we have lost our identity in the hurry of our painkilling. I think what do you call these guys who jump these high, we call them high jumpers. Well, what do you call them in English? Anybody knows that they jump with a rod or what? I still, pole? Whatever. Okay. If I cannot see it. Think about it. They raise the bar, right? They go and try to jump over it. They jump over it, they look back, and they go, oh, I did it. So what do they go? Raise it. They raise it again. They go, jump over it, and they go, oh, I jumped it again. And now they raise it at the level of the Olympian level, right? So they run, they jump, they look back, and it's there. And they say, world record, let's go home. No. What do? Higher. Raise it. I want to beat it. I must do even better than that. So they raise it. They run. They look back. And it's still there. And they go, I beat the world record. Is it enough? It's never enough. So they raise it again. They jump. And the bar is shaking and falls down. What do they say? What an idiot. How? If I only. I should have. I must have. Isn't that what we do with everyday life? That's our greatest stressor in life. Raising our expectations and perceiving ourselves as we are what we produce. We are what we achieve. We become production. I call it the objectifying of humanity. Objectifying the person. When I become only the what I am, what have I put down, what is my production, what can I show to the world, what can I put on Facebook, what am I, becomes the standard of life. That's a great stressor, because somebody else will come and say, I am more of the what than what you are. And see, there is nothing farther away from the truth than the sentence that what am I is the most important thing. Because God says, for me, who am I is the most important thing. I remember when my fourth grade daughter came home one day from school crying. And I said, what's wrong, Connie? And she said, Mom, I will be a nobody. I said, how is that? She was a straight 4.0. I mean, the kid would learn even in her dreams. I mean, anything you would say to her in her dreams, she would remember next morning. I think that daughter of mine is like a sponge. She remembers everything, so watch out what you tell her. So she comes home with a straight 4.0 average. Perfect A's on everything, and tells me she will be a nobody. And I say, how come? The teacher said that next week we will have a math exam. And if we are no good at it, then we are nobody. We are talking about a 10-year-old. I don't know how it is in the Western countries. I know that Eastern Europe is thinking this way. We still believe that we need to show what we are, because we are filled with shame, and we have a hard time believing that for God what is important of who I am. Think about these two questions. What am I is a stressor. Who am I is peace. So let me put some of these questions up to you. What is motivating me? What fuels me? What are my desires and needs and wants? What is my motivation? What am I hoping to gain from my success? What is it, the word that will be written on my paper, on my, how do you call it, on my award when I'm done? Will I be satisfied? What am I hoping to gain? What am I hoping to resolve through my success? And how is this in line with God's love for me? So before I go on for the last section of these thoughts on stress and peace, let me ask you this. How do you see this what am I versus who am I, or the three musts that I mentioned to you, or the questions that are up there? What is your reaction, thoughts, questions? Do you experience in your country the battle of what am I versus who am I? See, the more shame has been researched on people who have been abused, especially domestic violence. Now, I have this little game in my mind that I like to look at individual problems and individual mental disorders and see, how is it represented in people as groups, as society, as nations? And one of the things that I have been looking at actually is shame of the abused person. I do treat people who have been sexually abused. And in the years of abuse, they have learned that I have no right to be me. I have no word, I'm worthless, I'm nobody, and actually I should feel shame for wanting to exist. I'm only an object. It's interesting that under the pressure of communism, Eastern European countries have done the same thing. Because we have been taught that I am a nobody, you shouldn't open your mouth. And actually, how dare you want to exist? And you know, I always say that the Iron Curtain might be done, but communism and its residues and shame is still alive in the people's heart. So it is Eastern Europe the Eastern European part of Europe, we really need to learn the sentence, who am I? And we need to learn how to answer this question in Christ. The who am I comes from the whose am I question. You know, when ever since my kids were born, actually, even from the moment I knew that they were conceived, and I knew that I have a child under my heart, I started praying for them, every one of them. And I had a dream for them, and my dream was only that they wouldn't belong to God. That was my only desire for them. And from the first moment I held them, I kept looking into their eyes and wanting to make the first eye contact. And I remember as a mother kept wondering, is she looking at me right now? Does she get it that she's mine or not? But, you know, a child learns from the parent's who is looking at them and saying, you are mine. And that will give me the identity of you belong, you're precious, you're loved. But what when we don't get it from our parents? And is our parents' love enough? I think that is so important that we make eye contact with God, because then the Father can look at us. And if we find our eyes connecting with the Father's eyes, we will understand that you are mine and you are loved. And that will make the who am I fall in the right place. So thank you. So what are the biblical dimensions of stress management? Giving over control, which is influencing our self-talk. What I am telling myself over and over again, instead of the what I am and I must and who am I if I'm not doing this. I think I would like to bring just 3 points to you. To me, at least, for me, it will take a lifetime to manage, but I'm working on it. And I have found that in my life, these 3 aspects, 3 management skills are the ones that are really working when I'm under stress. One is that I have to make a choice of self-discipline. It is not politically correct to talk about discipline nowadays, because self-discipline is often even psychology calls it denial. Self-discipline is something that makes us stay alive. C.S. Lewis says, you must be asking which door is the true one, not which pleases you the best. So I think what I see in many burnt out people is that they constantly ask themselves, what is pleasing me the most? And what pleasing me the most is usually the door that will seemingly fulfill my desires and wants. Luke says, strive to enter through the narrow door, for many, I tell you, will seek to enter and will not be able. How many of people I have seen and talked to who want to seek to enter the narrow door, but they are not able to, because they think if they can control their future, if they can have what they dream about, then they will have truth. I think health, in some part, is a choice of self-discipline. The other thought I would like to pass to you is knowing the sovereign God. You know, sometimes it is painful for me to see Christians who I talk to, and I know that they know the Bible inside out. They can quote verses, they can quote Christian slogans. And when I ask them, but do you believe in what you believe? I receive a blank look. What do you mean? Do you believe what you believe? But I wish we would really be able to believe that God is above all. We are so used to hearing these verses, and because of this, we don't have time and energy and humbled heart to just dive into the deepness of this thought. I am God, and there is no other. I am God, and there is none like me, declaring the end from the beginning, and from ancient times things not yet done, saying, my counsel shall stand, and I will accomplish all my purpose. Many times I have stood in front of God with shaking legs and saying, will you be with me? I know what I want. I know what my desire is for. I know how I perceive this situation. But will you be with me? And in the silence, I had nothing else but a choice that I want to believe every single word of this word. I want to believe that He stands above it all. And no matter what, He will make my future work the way He sees it good. He will accomplish all His purposes. I remember when I called my sister, not much after my divorce, with pretty much nothing, and 5 little children, and no relatives in my own country. And I called her long distance, and I said, I am so afraid. And she answered me very simply, Emoke, remember, God has a plan for you. And before I could answer, she kept a little silence, and then she said, and the plan is good. Do we believe that the plan is good? Because we know God has a plan for us. But do we believe that the plan is good? Do we remember that the plan is good when we are stressed? When we are totally exhausted and new demands for change are coming? Can we still stand and say, I believe that the plan is good? When I can remember these lines, I can go on. But when I forget these lines, when I forget these verses, when I forget this truth, somehow all I feel is that the pressure on me is increasing. Knowing the sovereign God. And finally, our self-talk will be influenced by the confidence in God's unfailing love. From the very beginning of the Bible till the very end, everything is built on, I was with you from the beginning. I am with you, and I will be with you. What is a great enough stressor or change that can take that power away from God or you when you are with God? There's nothing. I think about it. Is there anything that can change this truth in your life? I was with you. I am with you. And I will be with you. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them. For the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. What I was trying to show you today is that there are some dimensions of our bodies that we need to take care of. There are some thoughts that we need to correct and watch out for. But when it all comes down to reality, it is what is in your heart. What do you hold on to? What are you hoping your changes to be tied around? What is your anchor? What I see is Christians, Christian leaders, guiding churches, pastors, under huge amount of demand. From superiors to churches, from non-believers looking at the church, pressed from all different sides, all different dimensions. What will help you go through it? It is perception, which I hope the true perception, and control, I hope, which is not yours nor mine, but it is His. Thank you very much.